Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Ask Windows Central, where we take your questions. This week we're going to talk about what are the odds of a Surface Duo 3? What about Android 12L on current Duos? What do we think can be improved on Windows 11 for upgrades? And do we see Microsoft launching a non-Surface branded PC line? All that and more. Stay tuned.
So let's dive straight into the first question this week. Do you see Microsoft launching a non-Surface branded PC line? Interesting question.
So the short answer, no. And the reason I know this is because I actually asked Microsoft that recently. I'm in the process of using the Surface Laptop SE, doing a quick review of that. And I asked them, why'd you call it Surface when it's a $250 PC when you could have just called it maybe a Microsoft PC? And they flat out said, we've never made a Microsoft PC, and up to this point, it's always been the Surface line. And so we're going to keep it that going forward. We just think it makes sense. They obviously had the internal discussion about this, and I think they were thinking about calling this Microsoft PC. After all, they do have Microsoft accessories, which are separate from the Surface accessories, although they often share similar designs and features. That said, this is Microsoft, and that's what we know today. Maybe in a couple of years, they may shift on that policy. But for right now, anything that's going to be a PC that comes from Microsoft will be branded Surface, and that's just it going forward. That should also mean that the Surface brand itself, or what it stands for, has evolved from this initial touch tablet device that supports a pen, as Surface Laptop SE does none of that stuff. But that's okay. The Surface brand, its identity, what it stands for, has evolved, and that's what we have here in 2022. All right, the next question. Now that we have Android 11 on Surface Duo 1, thankfully, what are the odds of Surface Duo 1 and 2 getting Android 12L? If there's one person that's going to know this outside of Microsoft, it's going to be Zach. So Zach, tell us what you know.
I think the likelihood is pretty high. Microsoft has committed to 3 years of support for the Surface Duo 1 and Surface Duo 2. And so far, the Duo 1 has only had one major feature update. The Duo 2 hasn't had any. I think it's pretty likely that the Duo 1 and Duo 2 will both get an upgrade to Android 12L this year. In fact, I've heard the plan is to skip Android 12, the main release, which is already out, and go straight for 12L, which is still in development at Google. I think development on that is supposed to finalize in the next couple of months. Once that's done, Microsoft will jump on that and prepare a release for the Duo 1 and Duo 2. I don't know if they'll release at the same time. I don't know if the features will be at parity. I assume there will be slight differences here and there, but for the most part, the Duo 1 and Duo 2 experience should be the same on 12L. And if you don't know, 12L adds a whole bunch of new improvements to the UX side of things and APIs for developers to support dual screens in addition to foldables. So it's overall going to be a much better release for the Duo devices, and I would be shocked if the Duo 1 doesn't get 12L. The Duo 2 will definitely get it. The Duo 1, I think, very, very likely to get it as well.
Yeah, this just makes sense. In fact, when Android 12L was announced, I expected Microsoft to skip Android 12. Why even bother? Just wait for 12L. This is the operating system that Microsoft and Google have been kind of working towards the whole time for this device, and it just makes sense. So, and I think the bigger story here, as you mentioned, will be the apps, not necessarily the OS itself, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
All right, so along that same vein, which do you see as more useful? Android app support in Windows 11 or the new apps with your phone?
So I have a strong opinion on this one. It is definitely Android apps on your phone. So for those who don't know, this was previously a Samsung feature. If you have a Samsung phone and you use your phone, you can launch individual Android apps right on your PC. They snap. You can run multiple ones of them. They're windowed. It's a really cool experience versus phone screen, which streams the entire device's screen. It's not as nice of an experience. Now, Windows 11, we're getting Android support as well via the Amazon store. Now, putting aside app limitations of that store, I find it a little bit more clunky. The performance is not necessarily as good, but the benefit here and why I prefer the your phone method is simply because you're already logged into all your apps. Whatever is on your phone that you use regularly is also now on your PC. You can just launch it and use it. You can even stream video apps, which is pretty crazy, but the performance is good. And it's the convenience of it. If you get a banking app, you're already logged in. If you're going to use the Android 11 apps via the Amazon store, You're going to have to download each app, log into each one. And, that's not a terrible thing. And I think for a lot of people, it's actually a good solution. And that's kind of the bigger point here. If only Surface Duo users and Samsung phone users have that feature, well, the Android 11 stuff is going to be a better solution. And I think there's also other opportunities there, including gaming, which will probably work better via the Android app emulation. But personally speaking, yeah, I'm going to go with your phone and apps. Zach, do you have an opinion on this?
Yeah, I agree. I think the Your Phone apps feature is also way less resource intensive compared to the Android subsystem for Windows, which can use anywhere from 2 gigs up of RAM, which isn't going to be great for a device with 8 gigs of RAM. So yeah, obviously depending on your PC, that experience will vary as well. I think you can always guarantee an okay experience with the Your Phone apps feature, whereas the WSA feature may be a bit up or down depending on the type of PC you have. And also it comes down to app availability, right? The Windows subsystem for Android through the Amazon App Store may not have many or any of the apps you're actually interested in, whereas your phone does.
All right, next question will be for Zach, and I think a lot of people will be interested in this. What are the chances of any company making a Surface Neo-like device that is dual screen and not necessarily foldable around the 10-inch size for Windows that takes advantage of those Android apps?
I don't know. I've not heard of any OEMs looking into that sort of form factor. It seems to be the focus is primarily on foldable screens. I think the problem with Windows is that Microsoft appears to have halted any development around supporting dual screen setups in that way. Yes, Windows supports dual screen PCs and whatnot in the form of multiple monitors, but in the way Surface Neo did it, it doesn't support that, and Microsoft doesn't appear to be bringing that functionality over to Windows 11, at least not yet. It could happen as long as Microsoft does actually bring that functionality and that support, because things like snapping and being able to span apps across both screens is very important for that form factor, and if Microsoft doesn't bring that to Windows 11, then I don't think that form factor really makes sense running Windows. A 10-inch device running Android, I think, is probably more likely, especially if it's a dual screen device. But yeah, I'm not too sure about Windows devices at the 10-inch screen size being dual screen.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I do think we should probably keep a little bit open-minded here that OEMs will be experimenting with different devices and form factors, including foldables. I think we'll see a lot of this happening later in 2022. HP already has a small, I believe it's around a 10-inch tablet that's supposed to be a companion device to the main PC, can mirror it and everything, and also has a really cool webcam on it. So I think we'll start to see a little bit more flexibility there, but I do realize a lot of people see the value if you take like a Surface Go and you're able to run Android apps on it directly, how that makes a killer, Kindle ebook reader or something akin to an iPad. Not necessarily going to be the same performance, but it'll sort of give the same experience. I think that's an interesting opportunity.
Okay, next question. What features could Microsoft add to Windows 11 that could entice the average consumer to upgrade?
All right, that's an interesting question because just this week, Microsoft talked a lot about Windows 11 adoption and said it was the highest, most frequent updated operating system that they've released so far with the highest user satisfaction. They get that usually through telemetry. They do pop up those questions where people can respond. And they've also saw basically, like I said, more people have upgraded faster to Windows 11 than Windows 10. And so user satisfaction already seems pretty high. I don't think they have a problem here necessarily getting people to Windows 11. If anything, it's going to be the hardware that's going to hold back people if you have an older PC or something that's not TPM 2.0. And even that's not technically a limitation. I've thrown Windows 11 on a 2016 and 2017 device with no issues whatsoever. You can just hack around it, But if I want to see something, of course, more tablet-friendly features I think would be nice. But again, this goes back to what devices are people coming from? Are they traditional laptops or are they smaller tablets? I would like to see a little bit more tablet functionality brought over to Windows 11. I think it's actually better than Windows 10 as is, but the gold standard is still what Windows 8 was for that experience. And they haven't come close to that. I'm not sure what their plans are. Zach, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think what we're going to see with Windows 11 this year really sort of focuses on just improving what they introduced with Windows 10 last year. So I would be shocked if tablet mode doesn't get a few improvements here and there. Things like Snap Assist would also be getting some updates. More consistent UIs across inbox apps are also expected this year as well. So I think what we're seeing Microsoft do this year is sort of finish up the Windows 11 vision, because the release that came out last year certainly was sort of mostly there, but there were certainly bits and pieces that weren't. So this is what this year's all about.
All right, let's do the final question that everyone has been waiting for. Zach, do we expect Surface Duo 3?
Yes. That's the short answer. Is, as far as we're aware, Microsoft is working on a Surface Duo 3. I believe they were greenlit for 3 generations of this hardware, so we're only at version 2, so I fully expect another one before things are thrown into question. That said, I'm confident that this product line is probably going to continue for another couple of years at least. Whether or not we see a Surface Duo 3 this year remains to be seen. As far as I'm aware, the plan is to not release a Surface Duo 3 in 2022. This year's more of a focus on the software side of things for the Surface Duo 1 and Surface Duo 2, just fixing things up, improving things, adding new features. And then Microsoft will return to market in 2023 with new hardware, likely dubbed Surface Duo 3, which will hopefully be a flagship device with improvements where you would expect it. We don't know anything really about what Surface Duo 3 is going to bring just yet, because it's still too early, but I think it's fair to guess that things like wireless charging, thinner bezels are all on the cards for a next generation device. But yes, a Surface Duo 3 is very likely on the way at some point in the next year or two.
To be fair to Microsoft, that the Surface Duo 2's hardware is actually pretty phenomenal. I don't see it demanding an immediate upgrade. It would be nice to have some newer stuff, but I don't think that's the issue. As you mentioned, software is. With Android 12L coming out, new APIs, new apps, there's a lot of opportunity there for them to focus on that. Meanwhile, sort of the longer they wait on the hardware, the better the hardware technology gets. And what I mean there specifically is, I don't think they really like that camera bump on the rear. I think that was a compromise that they did to basically answer people's complaints. But I think if they were given the chance to make that smaller, they would. Well, give them enough time with the hardware as it develops, they can make that smaller. That also means they do want Qi for Surface Duo 3. We know that. They want wireless recharging. But if you have a big camera bump, it makes it a little difficult to implement. If they can get rid of that camera bump again, bring back Qi Wireless, I think it's a much better device. And we should keep in mind, Samsung's rumored new S22 devices do have a more flush camera design, right? This is where the industry is going to. They're trying to get rid of the camera bump. So I think the longer they wait on stuff, actually, the better the Surface Duo 3's design would be. But that's not even the issue of that device. It's going to be pricing and software. And I think both of those will be addressed in the coming year. All right, that does it for this episode of Ask Windows Central. Remember, if you have a question, you can ask us on Twitter. You can hit me up at Daniel_Rubino, R-U-B-I-N-O, and Zach at ZACBOWDEN. You can also email us at daniel@windowscentral.com. Just put Ask Windows Central in the subject line, and we'll see if we can get to it next time. As always, thanks for watching. Turn into our podcast every Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Take care, everyone.